In this section, moms and dads, what I want you to understand as we talk about this is that there are constantly three different types of stressors that we're being exposed to: chemical, physical, emotional stressors, or we call them the 3T's: thoughts, traumas, toxins. So it's important to understand that there's always stressors that surround us. And it's not necessarily the stressor, it's the way that our body is able to respond to the stressors that becomes the problem. Because you figure in our environment, right, there's always going to be some form of chemical stresses, right? And chemical stresses, when you look at those, they can be things like chemicals that we put on our skin, our body, and our hair, things that we take in orally, that can be things like medicines, injections, but it can also be our foods. And that's oftentimes something that's pretty overlooked in this process, is the importance of understanding the influence of food. Because it is the one thing that we take lots of in, and it can also be the biggest driver of physical stress, physiological, neurological stress in our body. And we'll dig later into the importance of controlling the foods, but understand that it's something that every day that we have to be aware of, is that if we are putting a lot of chemical stressors in our kids' bodies, right, whether it's we're giving them a poor quality diet, whether it's something that is chemicals that are being put onto their bodies, these are all things that can then irritate their brain, their nervous system, decreasing their ability to adapt to the stressors that they need to be able to improve their adaptation to as we go through the course of the care plan. There's also the emotional side, right? What we call the thought side. And we need to be aware of the importance of this, because there's a term that you'll hear us say often in the office, that nerves that wire together fire together. And this is something that if you understand this concept, then you'll understand the importance of recognizing when there is stress in the home, when there is stress in your kid's life, when there's stress in your own life, and how it affects one another. You've probably seen this before. When there's a stress situation in your house, you've probably noticed that when you get stressed or your child gets stressed, one feeds the other. If you and your husband or your wife are in a fight, it can feed each other. And that stress can cross over so that the entire family is stressed out as a byproduct of the stress from one individual versus the next. Keep in mind that these oftentimes become patterns in our life. And nerves that wire together fire together means that the more that we are exposed to stress or stressors, the more that they get driven deeper into our nervous system. Patterns. So it's important that we think about stress in terms of controlling how much stress is a part of our life, making sure that we do things to try and intervene so that we're not constantly reinforcing this stress cycle. And so when we talk about nerves that wire together fire together, it's important to recognize when stress is starting to arise, but also to not allow it to continue to fire off over and over and over and over again. So if you are, if you're a parent of a child that is beginning care, be aware of this, because the more stress that your child is exposed to, the more that it will wire back into their nervous system on a system that we're trying to break that pattern of stress adaptability or lack of adaptability in. Keep that first and foremost in your mind. Make sure also that we're doing things that are helping to keep the child's brain stimulated physically, or it's your brain. Because it's important to understand that all of our brains, all of our bodies require movement to actually unload stress. That's why for those of you that exercise on a regular basis, you feel better when you exercise. If you are dealing with some type of a pain challenge, or if you have a child that's dealing with a neurodevelopmental challenge, stress issues, whatever it might be, lack of movement will actually drive up stress levels. And you've probably experienced this as a parent, where if you can't move for long periods of time, you may begin to feel agitated, you may begin to feel some discomfort, you may feel the need to move. If you've ever had a headache, you feel the need to move your neck. It's because your brain uses movement as a calming method. And the postural muscles, the muscles that line our spine, they are loaded with those proprioceptor nerves that calm our brain. So not getting enough movement as an adult or a child leads to increased stress. So it's important that as we go through this process that we are really, really tuned in to keeping exercise and movement at the forefront. It's going to be important that we schedule exercise into our day, whether it's, if you're a parent, that you do exercise before you go to work, or even if you have a child, right? Maybe make it a family routine where you guys get up and do some movement before the child goes to school. But make sure that on a daily basis they have a physical outlet, because, regardless if they have recess at school, oftentimes that's not enough. Especially at the end of the day, you'll notice that they'll come down from school, and you might see their emotions are a little heightened, maybe a little crabby, maybe a little on edge. It's because they haven't moved enough. Give them the opportunity to move. If it's bad weather outside, throw on a yoga program, dance, do something where you can move and burn off energy. Because this constant awareness of the thoughts, traumas, and toxins in our environment will help you to be able to understand the way that your nervous system or your child's nervous system is really built to work, the way that it's built to handle stress. What we're dealing with when you start the care plan is a lack of adaptability to those stressors. Our goal during the care plan is to continuously improve your adaptability to those stressors, so as we build more and more and more momentum, things like stress at home doesn't impact any of you as much. Things like sensitivity to foods begins to improve. Digestive processes begin to improve. So the exercise builds momentum, keeps our brain calmer. But maybe if there's a day where we can't get as much, maybe the stress is not quite as high as what it was in the past. And it's about this momentum process of progressively improving your ability to handle the stressors, but also adaptability that increases progressively over time, so that as we get further and further and further along, the impact of stressors on us becomes less. So moms and dads, hope this is helpful. I will see you in the next video so that we can dive deeper into the 5D algorithm.